Luke, I hate having things in my pockets.
Same. That's why I keep my keys on my belt loop. I may sound like a janitor, may look like a janitor with my keys on my belt loop, but at least my keys are not in my pocket.
Like, the first thing I do whenever I get here every morning, what did that be, Sunday through Thursday, is take my wallet and keys out of my pockets, put them in the sound booth.
I know exactly what you're right in the corner.
Right in
every
the corner,
time.
Every time.
See, I went to lunch earlier.
Right.
I left my wallet on my desk because I took it out of my pocket because I was tired of sitting on my wallet all day because I just feel like I'm lopsided.
Yep. And I absolutely cannot play guitar with something in my pocket.
Yeah.
I don't know why. Like, I think it's more mental than it is.
It has
else.
to be mental because I played last night with a wallet in my pocket. Like,
Right.
it didn't bother me.
Yeah. And mainly it's my front pockets.
Yeah. See, I understand front pocket. See,
But-
normally I keep my phone in my back pocket and
Right.
my wallet in my back pocket, and then
Right.
my keys are on my side. So like
Right.
nothing's ever really in my front pockets.
Right.
So
But yeah. Had to
Pockets.
empty out my pockets.
into your pockets.
Got a
good.
pocket talk. Pocket, no pocket.
Pocket, no pocket. Pocket, no pocket. Pocket. If you
Hey,
you know
there
you know.
it is. If you know, you know.
If you know, you know. Well, Joe, we're back. Sermon recap number 2.
Number 2.
Numero dos.
Number 1 actually went pretty well.
Number 1 went really well. I actually really digged it. I thought it was fun.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people enjoyed it.
Right.
I heard hearing people talk about asking us if this is going to be a regular thing. Yes, it is.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I just enjoy having conversation, talking with you, talking about ministry and
Right.
what's happening,
And who
sermons,
knows?
and
It may transition into a legit podcast
it
instead of just a
might,
sermon
it may
recap.
not just be sermon recap for youth. It might actually be a podcast on the way.
Right.
You never know. Be on
Hey,
the lookout.
come on.
We'll keep you in the loop.
Yep.
We'll have to get some podcast merch and
Oh, absolutely.
all that.
Absolutely.
All that. So last
You
night,
could even call it jukebox.
Jukebox. Okay, I like that.
Yep.
That's a cool name. The Jukebox. Welcome back to the Jukebox.
The Jukebox Podcast.
Well, awesome. So talking about last night.
Yeah. What'd you do? I wasn't here.
Sermon recap. So last
It's
night.
really going to be a sermon recap.
It's going to be a recap for you. I'm going to fill you in.
Yeah,
and we're going to talk about it.
Cool.
So last night we had the Keys family come and speak. The Keys
Oh,
family
man.
is missionaries that attend our church.
Right.
If you are a lead pastor or a pastor in your church and you're looking for a missionary to support the Keys family because they're doing amazing things.
Absolutely. They are super close
to
to
a monthly
100%.
support. Yep.
So,
Their goal is to be out of the States, going to language school in January.
come
So,
on. Keys family to Bolivia. If you want to
Bolivia.
check them out,
the belly button of South America. That's what they say.
that is great.
They literally said that last night.
That is the most Keys thing to say.
It is,
Like-
and I love it. They talked about, I don't know if you heard it, like she talks about the women wear their hat a certain way. So like if they wear their
Really?
hat like normal, it means they're in a relationship.
Okay.
Everything's fine. If they wear their hat back,
Oh.
it means they're single. Or no, wait. Like this, if it's cocked to one side, it means they're single
They're looking.
or they're looking.
All right.
And then if they wear it back, it means they're widowed.
Oh.
So she made the joke that her husband's always adjusting her hat to making it correct, like straight on.
Oh, man.
Because,
I couldn't do it.
no.
I mean, I'm not a woman.
Neither am I, but half the time, if I'm like, I mess with my hat
Oh,
all the time.
man,
It's
my
up
hat,
here.
it
Sometimes
can-
it's a little cockeyed. I'm all over the place with my
Yeah.
hat. But thankfully, we're not women, so we don't have to worry about that.
Wow.
But yeah,
I couldn't do it.
so they're talking about what they're going to be doing in Bolivia. They're talking about they're going to go. So if a mom were to get in trouble and they have to go to jail, the kids have to go to jail with them, which is crazy to think. Like these moms go to jail.
Isn't there something in the Bible about that? About the not being the kids eating sour grapes, the kids didn't eat the sour grapes,
Yeah.
so the parents. How does it go? The teeth wouldn't be on edge of the children whose parents ate sour grapes, so the kids would not be punished for the sins of the
Yeah.
parents. These people in Bolivia need to read the Bible.
Oh, it's so their main focus when they go there is to help the moms while they're in prison.
Right.
Because South American prison, I mean, just a prison in any third world country is going to be
It's
crazy,
bad.
hectic,
Yeah.
socialist country.
Right.
So they're going to go help the kids, but also help the moms. Because I said this last night to the students that imagine your mom went to jail. You're a teenager, so you're probably going to have to go to work. But if you had a sibling that was younger than you, under a certain age, they're going to go to jail
They're
with
going
them.
to jail too.
Like, imagine that. Sounds like I painted the picture. Like, all right, we need to start giving our money so that we can support these
Right,
missionaries so that
right.
they can support these kids. Because you don't want your sister or brother going into jail and being in a place that's
Because
like that.
your mom, what in the world was that?
I don't know. That was weird.
That was
It
loud.
was so loud.
It sounded like somebody just hit the church, guys.
It was probably the things you guys just stood up down there. It's probably
Man, we've had a crazy day today.
a lot of things we did not
projects.
expect we were
Lot
gonna
of-
do, but we ended up doing today.
Today.
But at
I
least we
mean,
got it done today.
Yeah, we got it knocked out today.
all done
So,
today,
hey.
so-
But yeah, we stood up some walls. You're gonna have to come check it out.
So come be our new Connect Point
yeah,
area.
yeah, new Connect Point area.
So you can act like you're a first time guest again, and you can check out that area. I'm
Yeah,
kidding.
hey.
You can just come and
But yeah.
look at it.
come check it out. Pretty cool. But we just stood up these like fake walls, and
They're like legit walls.
it's a full weight wall, and Luke thinks they just fell down from the sound of the thud.
There's not been anybody yelling down there or anything. We would have heard a Joe, Luke, come help us, but
Yeah,
we didn't
they-
hear that, so we're good, I think.
I mean, they could know that we're recording too, and just said, "Well,
Yeah, they're probably. Well, we'll get it.
they'll see when they come down and
Yeah.
fix it."
When you come, when you guys get down here, just so you know, you have a wall to fix.
Right.
Man. But we were talking about Bolivia. Not
Yeah,
Bolivia.
Key's family to Bolivia,
Bolivia.
and how kids gotta go to jail with
Jail.
the mom.
And I painted the picture that like we need to give so we can help it. You don't like we
Right,
have
right.
we have the unique opportunity where we live that we can give. That we don't have to worry about this. Like if you were your
Right.
mom or your dad or guardian were to go to jail, you're not going to go to jail. You're obviously going to go find another guardian, or you're going to go to a grandparent, or
Right.
or you're going to go to foster care, or whatever it's going to be. You don't have to go into the same circumstances as your mom or your dad in that situation. But also, like thinking about it, like a teenager, if your mom were to go to jail as a teenager, they're going to have to go to work.
Right.
And then it's a generational curse because probably going to end up, you're not able to make enough money. You're not fully educated to probably get a job. I don't even know what you would do in Bolivia. Like what kind of jobs are there? I don't know.
Right.
But like you're going to have to go to work. And then eventually you're probably going to be like, I'm not making enough. I'm going to have to start selling my body. I'm going to have to start selling
Right.
drugs. I'm going to have to work for the cartel. I'm going to have to do these
Right.
things. Like I was like, one, think how grateful you are that you live in a country that you don't even have to worry about that. That
Right.
you or even thank your parents that they're not in a situation that you have to worry about.
Right,
that.
because I mean that stuff can easily happen here too.
Oh, yeah.
Where, you're in a less than ideal situation, and then you lose one of your parents to incarceration and they go to prison, and then now you're stuck providing
Yeah.
for the rest of your family, and you don't go to school anymore, you drop out because you have to get a job, and then the job's not making ends meet, so you start doing
Doing what you got to do to make
Doing what
money.
you gotta do to
Put-
make ends
put
meet.
food on the table.
right. And then, like you said, it becomes a generational thing, and then now you've set yourself up to be in the same situation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
It can so easily happen.
like that.
Yeah.
Quick.
But like, be grateful that you have parents who love you, have
Oh,
parents who are
absolutely,
supporting you.
absolutely.
Like that's to me, I'm like that's one thing I took away as they were talking about where they're going, and it's a socialist
Right.
country, so it like complete opposite of what it is here.
And let me add real quick, if you don't have those parents that we're talking about,
Yeah.
reach out to us.
Yeah.
Let us know, like talk to Pastor Luke, talk to me, talk to Pastor Tori, Pastor Chris,
Yeah.
Pastor Angie.
Any of our youth volunteers, like they're
the youth,
amazing.
Like, let them know what you're struggling with and what you're going through. That way we can help.
Yeah.
Because we can only help what we know about.
Yeah.
So talk to someone if you're struggling with something like that, where you're the one that's working and you're the one that's trying to provide for your family as a teenager.
Yeah.
And you don't know what you're going to do. Come talk to one of us, and
Yeah.
we can help you out and help you get pointed in the right direction.
Get
and-
you connected with people.
yeah,
who
get you
can-
connected with the right people.
Yeah,
Yep,
for
yep.
sure. But going on to that, like, so Kerry Keys started telling a story about how when he was 16, he was on a mission trip, got called into ministry to be a missionary. And he's talking about how as he got called into as a 16-year-old, that he's like, I didn't know what that meant, but I had dreams for myself. I wanted to do
Right.
certain things. I wanted to be an EMT. I wanted to go into school to be that and to do this. But I was called to missions, and whenever that happened, I was like, cool, I don't know what this means. I don't know what it's going to look like. He said, okay, cool. So then he goes through the rest of his high school career, and without knowing this, Tara around the same time is getting called into the mission field as well at the age of 16. Like, they're two different places. He's in another country across the world on a missions trip. Tara's at like a camp, and they're both all of a sudden get a call of God on their life to be missionaries. They don't know what that means, so they forget about it. They go through their life, and they graduate high school, and Carrie decides, okay, I'm going to follow my dream of being an EMT.
Right.
And so he goes and pursues that. And I think it's cool. Like, yeah, God called him to be a missionary back at 16. And Carrie decided, you know what, this isn't for me. I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go with this. And I'm not going to follow it right now, but I'm going to do what I want to do. And how God, even though he's like, he let him do that, but he equipped him for whenever recalled them, or like, I wouldn't say recalled, but because the calling never left, but like re-solidified that call on their life.
Right.
And I was thinking, I think for right now, I think it would be kind of cool to talk about like maybe how we got called into ministry.
So it's crazy for me because mine is literally all very similar to Carrie's. Um, so mine going way, 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 way back. I was born.
Ayo,
Hey,
you were born.
I was born.
Shout out to your mom for
Shout out to my
getting you
mom.
out.
There's funny stories about that, but and they hand me to my dad. Dad holds me. Then they hand me to my great grandma, old time Pentecostal worship leading
Come on.
great grandma. And I was crying, and people were trying to shush me and like calm me down
Yeah.
as newborn baby and still in the hospital. And my grandma snapped at the people who were trying to calm me down and said, "Hey, don't quiet him. Those are pastor's lungs.
Wow, prophetic right there.
Come on." So then I spent literally all of my childhood being mentored by pastors. There's countless times
Yeah.
like where whenever, a kid would kind of like get signed up for a mentor, every single time it would always be the pastor that mentored me at different churches.
Yeah.
Like different churches, different pastors. I was always mentored by pastors. So then graduate high school, thought about going to the military for a minute, being a chaplain.
Yeah.
Then I said, nah, that ain't for me. So I went to the fire
I
academy.
mean, look at the beard.
Yeah, look at the beard. I had this in high school too. It wasn't for me. So then I went to the fire academy.
Yeah.
Very similar to Carrie, who
Yeah.
went paramedic. And to me, it wasn't out of like rebellion or running.
Yeah.
Like it was, my grandpa was a firefighter. His cousin was a firefighter.
You're kind of following the family line.
Family footsteps. So gonna be a firefighter. That's what we do. So went to the fire academy, graduated with like a 3.75 GPA, get a job at the city, and finally a firefighting job comes open. And I'm getting ready to put my transfer papers in to transfer departments within the city. And God, plain as day, says, you have a choice to make. You can be a firefighter, or you can go into ministry.
Wow.
But you can't do both well. Because very similar to what Carrie's job does, if I were a firefighter, I would be here for a day, and then I would be at work, firefighter for a day, and then home for 2.
Yeah.
So 24 hours on, 48 hours off. That schedule isn't conducive
No.
to ministry. I would only be at church 2/3 of the time.
Yeah.
So every third Sunday, I'd be gone. Every third Wednesday, I would be gone. And that's minimum.
Yeah.
So it's just not super conducive. And God, like plain as day, man, said, you have a choice to make, because I was already being like, I was getting involved in youth ministry. I was like youth leader, not quite youth pastor type yet. It was more just leading a small group.
Yeah.
But getting involved in youth ministry, getting super involved in worship ministry. And God just said, hey, you can do one of the two, but you can't do both.
Yeah.
And I said, okay. And I shredded my papers.
Wow.
So everything that I had went to school for, went to school for it, graduated super high in the class.
Yeah.
Did well at it.
You probably enjoyed it.
Enjoyed it, loved it, man. And just shredded the papers and kept working a job that was pretty well dead-end job. It was paid well and the benefits were good. I was a heavy equipment operator, but I wasn't going anywhere.
Yeah.
And that was...
How long did you work at the city for?
So I worked at the city for 9 years, and I shredded my papers probably 2 years in.
Wow.
So I stayed there for 7 years after.
Another 7 years. Because, so, You felt the call.
Mhm.
You even said one time you were at like what, a youth convention or something
Yeah,
similar,
yeah.
and you felt like as you're walking down, you were
Yes.
watching
Oh
the
man.
band like, and you
I,
felt like God's like, you're gonna do this one day.
yeah. That one was crazy too, man. That was the closest thing to an audible voice
Yeah.
that I've ever heard God speak.
Yeah.
And it was a familiar voice. It wasn't like the booming Morgan Freeman
Yeah, like everybody thinks.
like everybody
Yo,
thinks. It was just
you're gonna
it was a
be.
familiar voice. I could even tell you whose voice it sounded like.
Uh-huh.
He'll probably never watch this. His name's Dustin. He was my youth
Yeah.
pastor as a kid. It was his voice, and I snapped my head around because I thought he was behind me,
Mm-hmm.
but there was nobody there.
Man.
Bro, crazy. And it like you said, a friend of mine had asked me to go respond to altar time with him.
Yeah.
He didn't want to go alone, and I said sure. So we're walking down, and then I hear Dustin say, "If you stay on the right track, that could be you one day."
Mm.
So I turned around and looked, and there's literally, it's not just that Dustin wasn't behind me, there was nobody behind me.
Wow.
So I was like, oh, wow, that's weird. But we just kept going. And then I was like, what could be me?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the guy who spoke, the person who did the response time, the band that's playing, like
The person who put on this whole
the
event.
person who,
like,
the promoter who put everything together. Like what could, and I mean, I still really don't know that answer,
Yeah.
but I feel like I'm close. Like I'm definitely closer than I've ever been.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was crazy, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, felt called all through childhood.
Yeah.
And I think people even saw it on me.
Yeah.
I remember my parents telling me about a third grade parent teacher conference. They went and talked to my teacher, who was an unbeliever, and she said, "There's something very," and then turned and looked to make sure there was nobody there,
Mm-hmm.
and that she said, "Special,
Wow.
different
Yeah.
about Joe." And then they're like, "Oh man, does he have some sort of disability?" And
Yeah.
you
You
know,
use the word special. Like,
right?
wait, hold
now,
on.
like,
Wait
you,
a second.
you say special in today's culture. That only means one thing.
Yep.
But and then she's like, "No, he's different.
Yeah.
There's something different about him."
Mhm.
And that was third grade, man.
Yeah.
But I was writing and whenever we would have like sentence structure classes, I would write Bible verses
Mm-hmm.
because I knew them.
Yeah.
Like I would write Bible verses. I would write about God and
Mhm.
about family
Yeah.
when in third grade, like for writing projects. That's what I would write about.
Wow.
So yeah, my teacher was like, "There's something different
Yeah.
about him."
People could see the call on your life.
Even unbelievers.
Yeah.
Super early.
You see this sense. When did you feel like, man, this is like really gonna be, like I'm gonna really go into like maybe full-time vocational ministry? Because you were before, would you even say you were part-time vocational?
Volunteer.
You volunteer.
It was strictly volunteer.
Volunteer. But still, you're like leading in a capacity and
Oh, yeah,
role of a pastor.
I had a responsibility level of probably most staff people, but I was volunteer just because of the size of the church.
And let me say this: just because you feel like you're called, and you like, okay, you feel like you're called to ministry, and you're
That-
like, when does the paycheck come? It isn't about the paycheck.
It may never
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
but it's not. Like, it took God had to take down my pride level at one point for
Right.
me to realize it's not about the paycheck. It isn't
Yeah.
about the money. It's about the love for the people that you're serving.
Absolutely.
And leading.
Absolutely.
And once I finally grasped that, that's when God said, okay, now you can have a role
Yeah,
that's going to pay.
That's man, I hate when people refer to ministry as a career
Yeah.
because it's a calling. It's not a
Oh,
career.
it's a calling.
It,
Absolutely.
if you do this job for a career, you're going to get burnout.
Yeah.
You will get burnout. You will eventually hate it, and it could do damage.
Yeah.
It's a calling, not a career.
Because if you treat it as a career and God never called you, there's not a blessing on that, not a favor on that.
Well, and it's always going to be a job.
Yeah.
And if this is your job, like if I just viewed this as a job, oh man, it'd be rough.
Yeah.
Because how many hours a week you think we put in? Luke?
Oh, minimum of probably 50 sometimes.
minimum.
I would say,
And that's as like
That's minimum. That's not like there's a big event happening that week. It's
Right.
not counting if there. That's just like a Sunday. We get here. You get here 7:30, maybe a little bit earlier,
7:30 typically.
and then you're here until 1
Typically.
typically.
Yeah.
And if that's not if you then you have life group.
Mm-hmm.
Life group. I don't know if you're helping me on youth.
Yep.
Like that's another 4 or 5 hours in a work day.
Yeah, yeah.
And then we have our normal work hours, 8:30 to 4:30, Monday through Thursday.
Right.
And then not counting if you have
and we have Wednesday night service.
or someone call you in the middle of the night
Yeah.
because they need counseling or someone just to talk to or
Yeah,
pray
yeah.
with. And then not counting your like for us, so for me, we go to FCS. We
Yeah.
do stuff like that on our Friday morning. That's our day off, but we were like, man, we love this so much. We want to be a part of what
Right.
God's doing and pour into teenagers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like you're putting in so much more without overtime pay.
right.
Not, your
because
salary.
it's not about money.
It's not about money.
Because it's not about like how much we get paid per hour, how
No.
much we get paid per year. Okay, perfect example. Whenever I was doing youth ministry, I would work 4 10s, right? Through the summer and the beginning part of fall and the end part of spring. Guess where I was every Friday morning on my day off?
FCS at the high
FCS
school
at the high school and
or junior high. Yeah.
Every Friday.
Yeah.
Every single Friday. And I wasn't getting paid at all
Yeah.
by the church. I wasn't getting paid at all for youth ministry.
Yeah.
I had a full-time job, and on my days off, I was doing church stuff
Yeah.
because it's not a career, it's a calling.
But two, you love it, and it doesn't feel like you're ever
It
working an
never-
hour in
right.
your life.
That's what
I
I mean.
think that's what I love about it.
That's what I mean by if you get into it for the job, for a career, it'll burn you out.
Yep.
If you do it because you love it and because you're called to it, you'll never get burnt out.
Exactly.
That's how I feel.
Yeah.
And I could be wrong. I mean, but I've been at it for like 7 or 8 years at this point,
Yeah.
and I'm still not burnt out.
Yeah.
And I've been going at the same pace. So,
Yeah.
hey, we'll be all right.
We'll be all right. It's,
So what about you?
So for me,
Your call.
I was called. I was called. Man, I was probably 14.
Right.
I was called into ministry. We were at a retreat, and it was just our youth group retreat, and we had a pre-service prayer time, and before service, I was like praying, walking, pacing, like I normally do now. I still
Right.
pace when I pray,
All
and
the
as
time.
I
I
was
see it.
pacing, all of a sudden I just felt like it wasn't even like a voice. It just felt like it was in my spirit. Like, Luke, I have a plan for you to be a youth pastor. And I was like, okay, cool. So I was like, who do I go tell this to? Because I
Right.
like, it was one of those things like, man, this is so exciting. When I tell somebody, I don't know who to tell. So I find my youth pastor. I'm like, hey, this is what I just felt God speak to me. Is this actually God? What does God's voice sound like? Because I'm
Right.
like, I know I never had this before. And so I tell him, he's like, yeah, Luke, I've actually sensed that a long time ago. I was just waiting for God to tell you before I ever mentioned it to
awesome,
you because
man.
he didn't want to scare me away.
Right, absolutely.
And it was,
And it's easy to do.
Yeah, and I was like even thinking, I thought about it like maybe a year before that. I was looking at my youth pastor, looking at what he was doing. I was like, man, that's really cool. Like he just gets to hang out with teenagers. That's all I thought a youth pastor did was hang out with teenagers, play
Right.
ping pong, and I didn't realize what actually went into it. But I was like, man, that's really cool. If I would love to do that, and not even knowing like God was starting to reveal to me then that like, hey, this is something I'm gonna
He put that in your heart.
put my heart. It gave
Yeah,
me
yeah.
a passion.
Yeah,
Then
yeah.
like, and then I just began just to watch behind the scenes, see what he did, because my dad worked at the church, so I was able to be there
Right.
throughout the week whenever I could. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna see what he's doing. I will go in his office, hang out with him, and just
Right.
spend time with him. And through that, I began to learn that youth pastor is more than just hanging out with teenagers, more than just preaching a sermon, writing a sermon, but there's so much more to it. And as I learned, I was like, man, that looked so cool to me.
Yeah.
And
it's
then,
fun.
all of a sudden, God's like, I want you to do that. I'm like, okay.
Easy.
And I was like, perfect.
Let's
Like,
go.
Let's go. And then I was
Right.
like, and then that's where the lies of the enemies come in. It's like, oh, you're disqualified. You can't do that. You're not
Right.
qualified enough to do that.
Yep.
But through it all, I still followed God.
Yeah.
I still said, God, if this is what you want from me, I'm going to do everything I can to do it. So when I was in high school, I began to start an FCS. We called it Youthful Life Bible
Right.
Study, but it's the same idea. I started one for my school because we didn't have one. And we started having students come, and I began to that's how I cut my teeth writing sermons, because I write a little talk that I give before it.
Right.
And then I realized, man, this is actually a lot of fun. And then I started to get opportunities to speak at my church and in the youth ministry, and I was like, man, this is what God's called me to. It just like
Right.
it was one of those things that felt like it came naturally. Like I didn't
Absolutely.
feel like I had to try that hard. It just like, and like I had to learn to not just rely on my natural talent, but actually begin to put the time and effort into it.
Right.
And but yeah, I feel like that's where I was
And
called, and
That
Pursued it.
is that growing and stretching is super important.
yeah,
Because especially if you're called into ministry, you can skate
yeah,
for a while. If you have that calling and you have that personality type,
mm-hmm.
you can skate for a while and never grow
Yep,
because you'll be fine.
yeah,
But pushing yourself to grow, man.
yeah,
And not becoming the lid
Yeah.
for your ministry.
yeah,
And something that I love about you, and I think I'm kind of the same way, is for the most part, you don't have a desire to be anything other than youth.
No, like
Right.
people ask me all the time, like, is youth ministry all that it has for you?
Right.
God has for you? I was like, right now, yes.
Yep.
10 years from now, I can't tell you.
Yeah, I mean,
I can't
we'll
even tell
never-
you next year. Like,
we'll never be able to.
but right
you know,
now, God's called me to youth ministry.
Yeah,
and I'm going
and
to give all
that's-
that I have
to
to
that.
youth ministry.
Yep.
Because I feel like so many times, like in the circle of churches or just youth pastors, sometimes they use it as a stepping
Oh,
stone
that's
to get
it's
to
typically
the next
that's
step.
all it ever is.
And it's like, for me, it's never been like that. I'm
Right.
like, God's called me to be a youth pastor. I have a passion to serve teenagers, help them to see that God loves them and that God has a plan for them.
Right.
And that's where I want to be.
And see, I kind of like getting into creative arts has really shown me that that's my heart.
Yeah.
Even more because I always thought, like I've always had a plan to, since I got into it to be pastor. I didn't know something like this even
Yeah.
really existed.
Didn't know that you just got paid to be a creative arts pastor. You
Right.
didn't even know that was probably a title.
Yeah, I didn't. And I was like, oh, that's me. And then I got in here, and like the more I got into it, I don't want to be a lead pastor,
No.
campus pastor. Like, I want to put everything that I have into being a creative arts pastor and making the Sunday experience as enjoyable as it can
Yeah,
be for people.
definitely.
And like just honoring God.
Yeah.
Like, that's me. I have no desire to
Yeah.
do all the other stuff, man.
Yeah.
Like, I want to focus in on my area and make it the best possible.
Yeah.
But that's just me. Other people, they can use it as stepping stones, and
maybe that's what God wants for
and
them
maybe
in that
that's
season.
maybe
And-
that's how God, he'll show you ministry this way,
Yeah.
and then you move into a different aspect, and then you can take what you learned here and
Yeah.
apply it there too.
Yeah.
And that's cool. That's the great thing about God, is he can always say, okay, you did that.
Yeah.
And kind of what Pastor Don talked about with us that one at that one meeting.
Yeah.
You get going to B, and then now you can see.
See. Yeah.
So it's not always just point A to B. It's taking that step and moving,
And then all of a sudden, you
and
can
then
see
now
the next step.
now the next step is more visible. So
Yeah.
Yep.
So we're talking about calling.
Calling,
And we're
yep.
talking about full vocational calling.
Yep.
And being in ministry. Not everyone's called to be a pastor.
Absolutely.
Not everybody's called to
Yep.
serve in the church at the capacity we serve at.
Yes.
And for you, maybe your calling is to be a teacher,
Yeah.
a doctor,
Yep.
a police officer,
Yep.
a firefighter, an EMT, whatever it may be. God may be putting a calling on your life that is completely
100%.
the opposite of this.
100%.
But at the end of the day, we all have the same calling, which is the Great Commission.
Absolutely.
To go into all the world and share the gospel.
Yep.
And that's one thing I love about having missionaries. Because we say, man, we're not called to go to Bolivia,
They are the
But they
hands
are.
and feet.
but we can equip them by
Yep.
giving them money,
Yep.
by praying for them.
Yep.
At the end of the day, if you can't give money to missionary, I mean, they're always going to accept your money if you have money to give to them. But
Right.
the thing they're never going to turn down
Prayer.
is your prayer,
Absolutely.
because your prayer can change things for them.
Right.
I had this dream the other night. I was sleeping, and all of a sudden, I just had a dream of one of our missionaries that we support. I won't say his name, but like I had a dream of him, and I felt like I needed to wake up and just begin praying for him out of nowhere. I never had a personal conversation with him.
That's crazy.
I just know his name and know his face from our wall, and I just felt God like all of a sudden just drop on my heart to pray for him in the middle of the night.
Right.
And I wake up just praying. I'm like, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what they're going through. I don't know where they're at. But God, I pray you intercede for them right now, because I feel like they
Right.
need your prayers. Feel like they need your protection. And I was just middle of the night. I could have been whatever, God, and just rolled over
Absolutely.
and went back to sleep. But I just had an urgency to pray. And maybe for you, you will have an urgency to pray for a missionary, pray for a friend like that. That's your calling, just to pray for them.
Right.
And then allow God to open the door for you to have conversations or do whatever
Absolutely.
with that.
So as we wrap this one up,
Yeah.
pray for missionaries.
Pray for missionaries.
Pray for your pastors.
Pray for your pastors. Yeah.
We need it.
Yeah.
We
We pray for you. And
Yep.
like we would love your prayers. too.
Yep. And whether you're watching this at any age,
Yeah.
if you're feeling called into ministry,
It's
talk
never
to one
too
of
late.
us.
It's never too late to,
Oh.
if you feel called to go into ministry.
Never too late. Never too late at all. But talk to us.
Yeah.
And let's look at what the next steps are for you.
Yeah, we can
Because-
definitely help you.
Because there's one thing to be called into ministry, and then there's another thing to accept the call and move forward.
Yeah.
We've been there. We've been, what do we do next?
Yeah.
And without people coming alongside of us and saying, all right, hey, here's these next steps, we would probably still be stuck.
Yeah.
So if you're feeling called into ministry, reach out, Pastor Luke, me, Pastor Chris,
Yeah.
your lead pastor, wherever, if you're watching it from another church,
Yeah.
reach out to somebody and say, hey, what is my next step?
Yeah.
Like, I'm really feeling called into ministry. Don't really know what it looks like yet. What do I need to do next?
I can tell you your next step. If you're not serving in the church already, that's your next step.
Oh, if you're not serving in the church you attend, I mean, that's
That's
like,
step number one.
that's step number one. Even if
That's
you're
how
not,
you're gonna
even if you're
find out
not
if you
called to
actually enjoy
ministry,
serving
man.
in church.
Right. But even if you're not
If-
called to
yeah.
ministry, things work better when they're plugged in. Plug into your church.
Yeah. Get
I
plugged
mean,
in.
get plugged in. Get on a serve team. You don't have to have any like special qualities to hold the door for people.
No. It
You-
doesn't cost you anything to have a smile and greet someone.
Yeah. And churches are always looking for greeters.
Oh yeah.
Always looking for greeters. And that's just, and you'd be amazed, man, at how much that can change someone's day.
Yeah.
Like sometimes, we'll look at different roles and try to assign importance, but A, the machine doesn't work without all of its pieces.
Exactly.
And B, holding a door for someone with a smile can change the entire atmosphere whenever they come in the room.
That's right.
Like whenever a person comes in the room and the door is opened for them and the person is smiling and saying, welcome home, that can change literally the rest of their experience.
Yeah.
So if you're not plugged in,
Get plugged in.
talk to somebody and get plugged in and start with being a greeter or something. If you don't obviously if you sing or play an instrument, it's super easy to plug into a worship team.
Yeah.
If you don't do stuff like that, sometimes it can be hard to say, where do I fit in?
Yeah.
But kids ministry is always looking for people.
Yep.
If you're not good with kids, you don't really like kids, greeters, coffee
Coffee bar.
Usually churches have some sort of coffee. You can help out in a kitchen of some sort to do coffee or whatever your church does. There's always opportunities to serve at your church
Exactly.
and get on a team, and guarantee you will feel better about it.
For sure. Well, thank you so much once again
Yep,
for
yep.
joining us for episode 2
Episode 2,
of our sermon recap. We hope that you've been encouraged, and we pray that you have a blessed week.
Yep. Have
See
a
y'all.
good one, guys.